So what are we gonna make this episode? Cinnamon buns. They're so soft and fluffy, and that classic cream cheese icing is just delicious. And they are quite quick and easy to make too. I also have a recipe for Chelsea buns. Click the link in the top right corner to watch that. But for now, let's get on with these beauties. You'll find the full recipe with all the details down in the description box. Well, let's begin with the equipment that we'll use. You'll need a tray for baking, a bowl, scales, scraper, temperature probe, a rolling pin, brush, a chopping board, and a serrated knife. And you'll need a fork. I mean, you probably already have all these things at home right now. So let's see the ingredients. We'll need white flour, milk, yeast, salt, some softened butter, some sugar. I'm using brown sugar, but you can use any sugar. Cinnamon, obviously. Then you'll need some powdered sugar, some vanilla essence, this is optional, and some cream cheese for the icing. And I'm going to use some syrup to glaze the buns once they come out the oven, but that's optional too. So let's begin. First, I know my kitchen's quite warm, 25 degrees, so I want my milk to be around 20. I'll get the bowl, add the milk, add the yeast, and let it hydrate. Just leave it to sit for around 5 minutes or so. And after a few minutes, we'll add some of the flour, not all of it. We're making something called the flying sponge. This is a pre-ferment. So just mix it all up, cover it, and we'll leave it to ferment for around an hour. This will be the foundation for our dough. Make sure it's puffed up and nice and bubbly. And it's called the flying sponge because it's a very quick pre-ferment. Normally if you do Polish or bigger, it will take you 12 to 16 hours. This only takes 1 hour. And as you can see, it's nice and wobbly, full of air, but it still has some resistance to it. You don't want this to be runny. Now add the salt and sugar and give it a good mix. You want to dissolve all the crystals. It'll be a lot easier to do it now instead of trying to work it into the dough later on. So just grab your scraper and give it a good mix, and then add the rest of the flour. And once again with the scraper, just mix to combine until you don't see any more dry flour. Then tip it out on your table and we'll start working the dough. Now this is quite a dry dough, and to knead it, we'll use a regular kneading method. What I like to do is press down and forwards with the heel of my right hand, and using the fingers of my left hand, I fold the piece of dough under the heel of my right hand, and then turn and repeat. You want to do this for around 5 minutes or so. And once we have a bit of gluten development, we can stretch the dough out and start adding the butter. Now fats prevent proper gluten development. That's why you always want to add it once there's already some gluten development. And make sure you're using soft butter, not molten. Now this is the messy part. Spread the butter over the dough and then start squishing it together. Pull it, tear it, squeeze it. There's no right or wrong here. Just get stuck in. And you want to do this until it's more or less combined. And once you're happy with that, scrape it all together and start kneading again. And we'll knead it the same way as before. Just do it for around 5 minutes or so. The dough will become a lot smoother and all the butter will absorb into it. So it's been around 10 minutes from start to finish and our dough is looking good. There's decent gluten development and it's ready for the first proof. I'll shape it into a ball. Flatten the dough out, stretch the sides over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach the point where you started. Then flip it smooth side up, tighten it against the table and place it in your bowl. And always take the temperature. Now 27 degrees might look like high temperature, but trust me, this dough needs it, so just cover it up and leave it to ferment. We'll proof it for around 30 minutes, and then give it a fold. Folding will achieve two things for this particular dough. We'll degas it, and we'll even out the temperature. Because the inside of the dough was warmer than my kitchen, I want to fold it and distribute that temperature evenly to give me an even fermentation. Performing a fold is quite simple. Just place the dough smooth side down, flatten it out, then fold one side over the other, and then fold over the top and the bottom. Do it quite gently, you don't want to do this too tight. And once you finish the folds, flip it smooth side up again, tighten it against the table, and place it back into your bowl. And we'll leave it to proof for another 30 minutes. Now bear in mind that if your dough has a lower temperature, then you should proof it for longer, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Also, this is quite a small piece of dough, it's only for 6 buns. So when you look at it, it may seem like it's not rising much. But that's how a small piece of dough will deceive you. It is rising. And another 30 minutes later, we are ready to roll it out. It has puffed up It's nice and soft. It's definitely doubled in size. Now get your rolling pin, dust your dough with flour, dust your work surface with flour. You don't want anything sticking here. And then press the dough out lightly with your hands. Try to form it into a rectangle. And once you're happy with that, start rolling. And we want to try to roll this dough out to about 1/2 inch thickness. That's around 1.5 centimeters. And if the dough is resisting, don't force it. Just cover it up and let it rest for 5 minutes. It'll be a lot easier to roll out then. Now it's rested a bit and we can continue rolling. And this recipe only makes 6 buns. So if you want to make 12, just double the amount of ingredients. But you would still roll it out to the same thickness. So once you rolled it out, you start adding the filling. Get your soft butter, your brush, and your sugar mixed with cinnamon. I'll use about 3/4 of the butter here. Brush it all over. Just leave about a 1 inch uncovered piece of dough just at the bottom. And then sprinkle on your cinnamon sugar. A nice thick layer. Trust me, it won't be too much. The more the better. And that's it, we're ready to roll. Grab the top of the dough, fold it over, push it in, and then keep rolling. Slowly. You want to try and roll it quite tight, but not too tight. Try to do it as evenly as you can. Obviously we're baking at home, so who cares what they look like? They'll still taste delicious. And if they're a bit wonky, just gives them a bit of character, right? One thing you will notice as you roll, the dough will become narrower down the bottom, so just stretch it out a little bit and keep rolling. This will keep it even. Easy does it. This dough is not too sticky or soft, so it'll be quite easy to work with. Even a beginner can do this. So leave the last bit exposed, the one we didn't brush with butter, and instead of butter, brush it with a bit of water. This will help the dough stick to itself. And then just seal it up. And again, try to pull it tight. Once you're happy with that, grab your chopping board, clean up the mess, and brush the rest of the butter all over the dough. This will keep the buns separate and prevent them from sticking together. It will make them nice and easy to pull apart. And you want to get the butter all over. Brush this side first, then flip your dough and brush the other side. Now it's important to use a serrated knife here. It will not work very well with a regular knife. So straighten up your dough and cut it into 6 pieces. And if you double the recipe, just cut it into 12. Long, uninterrupted cuts will work best. That's it, they're ready to go on the tray. I'm using a non-stick tray here. If you don't have a non-stick tray, make sure to place some parchment paper, because they will definitely stick. Now you want to leave a bit of gap between them, so they have space to expand, but don't leave too much space. You still want them to be together. You can press them down a bit, spread them out, then cover them up and proof them for 45 minutes. Whilst they are proofing, preheat your oven, 190 degrees C, no fan. As you can see, they are puffing up, they're filling the gaps, and they'll expand even more in the oven. We're ready to bake. There's just one last step I like to take. It is to brush them with a little bit of milk. Gives them a nice color. You don't have to do this, but it just makes it a little bit nicer. And that's it, they're ready to go in the oven. We'll bake these for around 30 minutes. Make sure that the bottom is baked properly. If it's not, then just flip them upside down and keep baking. You don't want to eat gummy buns. Trust me. Now as soon as they come out of the oven, brush them with a sugar syrup. This will give them a nice shine and that classic stickiness. Now you want to cool them down a little bit before adding your icing, otherwise the icing is just going to run off. So ideally, get them out on a rack, and whilst they are cooling down, make the icing. This is super simple. Get your powdered sugar, add a little drop of vanilla, the softened butter, and then the cream cheese. And then grab a fork and give it all a good mix. And once it's nicely mixed up, you want to add maybe 1 tablespoon of hot water. And you might need more, you might need less. It's up to you to see the consistency. But I would compare it to like a thick sour cream. And trust me, you want to make this cream cheese icing. It's the best thing in the world. I couldn't get enough of this stuff. And that's it. Once your buns have cooled down a little bit, smother them with the icing. Trust me, there won't be too much. I had one big regret after making these. It was because I only made 6. So you know, don't make my mistakes. Double the amount, make 12. And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, drop them down in comments. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.